Hello and welcome to today's Royal Society of Chemistry webinar on chemicals regulation and the end of the Brexit transition period. My name's Tanya Sheridan. I'm the Manager for Policy and Evidence here at the RSC, and I'm joined today on the panel by Camilla Alexander-White, who is the Senior Policy Advisor leading on chemicals regulation. This session will be half an hour. We will talk for about 15 to 20 minutes in total, and then we will take some questions. Please mute microphones and put your questions in the chat. We will answer as many of them as we can, probably grouped together. I will briefly outline where things are with the transition period and the UK-EU future relationship, and then Camilla will talk in a bit more detail about the implications for chemicals regulation. So, next slide please. We are near the end of the transition period, which is the period where the UK has left the European Union, but European Union rules still apply in the same way that they did when the UK was a member state of the European Union. And that transition period will finish on the 31st of December, which is in 36 days' time. And that graphic comes from the gov.uk website. So what next? And as you will know from listening to the UK news, that's still not 100% certain. Negotiations are ongoing between the UK and the European Union on a free trade agreement and other aspects of their future relationship. It's a negotiation that's extremely important to both parties. 43% of the UK's exports go to the EU, so it is the UK's biggest trading partner, and 52% of UK imports come from the EU. So it is really important. At the same time, there are some very big and fundamental issues outstanding for the EU. It's really vital to keep the integrity of the single market and to make sure that trade is done on a basis that doesn't lead to unfair competition, particularly very nearby. Equally, for the UK government, it's very important to have regulatory independence, and that's seen not just as a transactional thing of being able to alter regulations, it's a fundamental principle for them around sovereignty. At the same time, both sides realise that it is really important to try and reach an agreement, so efforts are ongoing to a deal, which I think had been hoped for by around mid-October. The mood music in recent weeks has been more positive, but there is still this big uncertainty about what the outcome will be. So, what next? I think either there will be a deal or both sides will negotiate up to the wire and will try and get one, but they may conclude that it's not achievable and that they need to prepare for transition. What does a no deal mean? It will mean that there will be tariffs and also non-tariff barriers. That's rules and regulations which act as barriers to trade, and various aspects of doing business with the EU will become a lot more complicated. Even with a deal, there will be significant changes. So, for example, customs processes, but trade will still be easier than in the event of a no deal. Implications for chemicals regulations. I think in either scenario, regulations themselves are not going to change on day one, but we can expect that there will be reviews and changes in the UK over time, with some things moving roughly in step with or ahead of the European Union and some things not. And as for the details on registration as well as the regulation, I will hand over to Cam in a minute. All I would say now is that we recognise that the short period of time, that 36 days, is really difficult for business and really difficult for researchers. And it's something that we and a lot of other organisations are making representations to government about and have been emphasising the importance of guidance and as much certainty as possible. Now over to Cam for some of the detail on chemicals regulations and the post-transition period.
Thank you, Tanya. Could you switch to the next slide, please? Thanks a lot, Louise. So yes, we're still in a period of uncertainty, not knowing exactly what the negotiation is going to come out like, but there are some things that I think we do know here. Tanya mentioned about EU law really it's been transposed over across into UK laws now from the 1st of January. So what changes are there for chemicals regulation on day one is the question that we're being asked a lot. For businesses, it's mainly administrative. I think a general citizen wouldn't really know anything's changed. Even a scientist working in our community won't really feel any changes on day one, but there are some administrative changes that businesses need to be aware of. And that the role that you currently undertake as a business within EU REACH may change under a new UK REACH, and in some cases that could be significant. So it's important that you've done a review and that you undertake the review pretty soon in terms of the role that your business will have, both within EU REACH if you have an EU market, and then UK REACH if you have a GB market. And I will just say a little bit more about why I said GB there. So on the 1st of January 2021, EU REACH laws ceased to apply in Great Britain, but EU REACH will still apply in Northern Ireland. And this is a relatively recent change that the government have implemented. So any EU REACH registrations and authorisations that are led or held by a GB company become invalid. And so I'm being very specific there about saying GB, because although the system that's being talked about is called UK REACH, that new UK REACH regulation will only apply to GB. And EU REACH continues to apply in Northern Ireland. And UK REACH won't cover the imports from GB to Northern Ireland. So it's going to be more complicated than in previous years. It's not expected, even if a deal is reached in the coming days or weeks, that the UK will be a part of EU REACH still. We do keep campaigning for data sharing agreements, which could be agreed outside of a deal in principle if both parties were willing, so we do still call for that. But there is going to be, under UK REACH, the same no data, no market principle that will apply, but it is being phased in over 2, 4 and 6 years with phase-in plans. The Health and Safety Executive, which become effectively a new UK chemicals agency, they may not be called that name formally, but the Health and Safety Executive will be the competent authority and the regulator in the UK, in GB, that's right. And then they'll be expecting businesses to submit data packages dependent on tonnage of use over 2, 4 and 6 year periods. And so that issue about data availability may not be felt on day one, but it may be felt by businesses in a stealthy way over the months and years as those deadlines reach their point of implementation. So, as I say, on day one, the changes for businesses are mainly administrative at the moment, and there are details of this on the HSE's website. Can you go to the next slide, please? So, yeah, on the broader aspects of chemicals regulation as well, it's not just about REACH, although that is the main kind of regulation that people think about when you're talking about chemicals regulation. There are a whole host of other regulations, such as the plant protection products, the PPP regs, the biocidal products regs, the thing about shipping hazardous wastes, prior informed consent, and classification, labelling and packaging regulations at CLP. They're all interrelated, and they become the responsibility of the Health and Safety Executive, and decisions will be made under those regs by the Minister of the day. So there's a whole host of other regs outside of REACH. I think we also, as well as we now reach the end of transition and go into 2021, we have to think about chemicals in products. And as we know, BEIS has established the Office for Product Safety and Standards, the OPSS. So that will start to be a regulatory body for products containing chemicals, as well as a range of many other products as well. And we also have the UK National Quality Infrastructure that's established, which brings in the OPSS together with the British Standards Institute, the National Physical Laboratory, and the UK's accreditation service, UCAS, which we know very well, maintaining the standards in chemical laboratories, etc. So those four bodies come together under a quality framework. So it's not just about REACH, although that's what people have been talking about so in greatest detail so far. We need to be made aware of some of these other kinds of regulations as well. And the main thing when we're now as GB making decisions for these different chemicals regulations, there's going to be a real strong need for technical experts and policymakers to work together and come to a view for GB, particularly on authorisation and restrictions decisions in REACH, classification decisions, etc., and whether to put plant protection products or biocides on the markets. These are going to be ministerial decisions, and they're going to need to be informed by the best science. And the decision the minister takes for GB, of course, as Tanya was saying, may be different from the EU Parliament. So we could see some regulatory divergence on authorisations and classification decisions starting in 2021 onwards as these things come up for renewal. So we've called for chemicals decision making in GB to be fully transparent, and the science is taken into account in all decision making going forward. So that we are absolutely sure that we are feeding in the best science and making the best decisions as GB. But it's true that they could be different from the EU pretty soon. Next slide, please, Louise. So we've got a certain outlook for the UK here. We've got the UK chemicals framework in the context of a strategy being talked about now. So DEFRA as policy leads are leading on this, and we can expect that to be worked on from 2021 all the way through to 2022 and 23 in terms of a long-term strategy. But they are working on this thing called a UK chemicals framework now to be implemented in the early part of 2021. And so that's active. That's a part of the 25-year plan for the environment. There's always been a commitment to do a UK chemical strategy, and that work will continue. We also should be aware, as we leave the EU, what is happening in the EU still. There's an EU chemical strategy for sustainability, and that's now published, and there's the link for that in these slides, and we'll be keeping an awareness about what's happening there. And also there's work at the UN level on the strategic approach to international chemicals management that goes beyond 2020, and that the UK is expecting to play a leading role there in looking at globally harmonised regulations for chemicals going forward. And as we know, there's the desire to strike new global trade deals, working with others, and there's different chemicals regulations in different parts of the world. So we'll be working with USA, Canada, Australia, China, a whole range of countries that may do things very differently. And that's, that's a whole new world of looking at working together with other countries when we have our own UK chemicals regime in place as well. Okay, next slide, please, Louise. So we've got this document on the web that some people might have seen already, which is trying to build trust through agency and science, really. Trying to make sure that the citizens in the UK are going to trust what the regulator does by having the best science inputting into these processes and into the new frameworks, looking for economic prosperity, and working through education, innovation, circular economy and regulation as four pillars here that we can really try and do some tangible things to support the development of a UK framework. Okay, so thanks. Next slide. And in the slides afterwards, all the links that you need in terms of what you need to do next, in terms of the practicalities here. There's a great deal of information now on the government website. There's how to comply with REACH, UK REACH, and different links at the HSC's website, the OPSS, the UK National Quality Infrastructure, and information for traders at the bottom there. So all those links will be provided afterwards. So that's where I'll stop, and then I think we've got Q&A.
Indeed, and so please ask lots of questions. If possible, please ask them in the chat. Natalie, have we been getting any yet through the chat?
Yes, we've got 2 questions. So we've got one from Michael. Michael wants to know whether we'll be able to access the ECHA database for chemical label confirmation, and if not, is there going to be a UK database available?
So you have to remember some of the detail we may not be able to answer because we're still under the negotiations. The UK, I believe, is asking for access to some of these databases so that we can, but my understanding as we stand here today is the expectation is not that there will be separate systems. There may be some transposition. There's also information in the public domain on ECHA's database already, which is free to the world to see anyway. But the legally sensitive information we would not be able to access as things stand at the moment, unless there was specific agreement to do so.
Thanks, Cam. We've got another question from Dana. So with Northern Ireland remaining under the EU chems regulations, does Northern Ireland company sending goods to GB have to register under GB REACH as well?
Now, that's a good question in terms of whether a Northern Ireland company actually has to comply with UK REACH going in. If they're selling goods into UK REACH, I think that's not entirely clear. So I think we would have to go away and check on that, because I wouldn't want to say yes or no to that. I don't think that's entirely clear. Certainly, if GB goods are moving into Northern Ireland, then I believe they have to comply with EU standards. But the other way, I don't think that's entirely clear.
Thanks, Cam. And another question from Jack. So what role does the RSC see for itself regarding Brexit, and what dedicated resources are available to assist members?
That's a good question, because, you know, we can talk about the RSC and the science. We try to keep it to the science. We want to be really connecting the policymakers to the best scientists going forward, and ensuring that science is taken into account in the decisions that are being made. There's no legal requirement necessarily to do that in all of the chemicals regulations that are being now, you know, the UK's GB's responsibility here. So there's no legal requirement to do so. So we are going to be a strong voice, hopefully, to say please draw on the best science. And if there are new structures going forward, which I believe there will be, there'll be a call in 2021 looking for experts to participate in advisory groups, etc. in 2021. The OPSS, for example, as well, has made a call recently for a register of specialists. Bodies like the FSA and the MHRA are doing the same. So having a register of specialists is a good thing to do, so that we can help link the different kinds of advisory structures to the best scientists going forward.
And can I pick up on that a bit? So I'm just continuing on the theme that Cam was setting out there with the specialists. As a professional body, we recognise that our members' expertise could be particularly valuable in developing a good regime for chemicals management in UK/GB after the end of the transition period. And we also have some resources such as our webinar on civil service careers, because it's worth noting for anybody who's in early career and perhaps interested in looking at what are the careers implications of Brexit, there will be new civil service roles needed to regulate chemicals and to take on other similar science-driven functions that have previously been mostly performed by EU institutions in respect of GB. Cam's talked very eloquently about what we're doing at the moment on chemicals regulation. since the referendum in 2016, when we established, in consultation with our chemistry community, we focused on 3 strands of the impact of the UK leaving the EU. The first of those being the impact on international scientific collaboration, and we're continuing to make the case for the UK to associate to Horizon Europe, which is the next EU research and innovation programme. There's actually a webinar on that on Monday lunchtime, which I will be doing with my colleague Mindy Dulé. So if anybody's interested, please do register. And of course, that's going to be quite dependent on whether a deal is in fact reached. The other area is mobility of scientists, because a big change resulting from the UK leaving the EU is that freedom of movement will be ending at the end of the transition period, and that impacts on recruitment and the ability of research groups, of SMEs, of companies to get the best scientists in a global talent market. So we have been quite proactive in trying to shape immigration changes to make sure that highly skilled scientists from the EU or anywhere else in the world can still come to the UK. And we do have a legal advice line, I believe, for members. Have done in the past a webinar on settled status, and there may be the facility to do that again early next year.
Thank you, Cam and Tanya. We've got a few more about UK Reach. So one of our members, Douglas, would like to know more about whether a Northern Ireland company would need to notify to qualify to continue to trade. And then another question from Richard is about the COSH regulations alongside Reach legislation. Is there an impact on either?
I'll deal with COSH first. I think COSH has always been a national regime. You know, the Health and Safety Executive website has a great deal of information on COSH, so that's the best place to go to look for the details on COSH there, which will still apply. Now, there is a timeline for notifications. It says in the Reach roadmap, as it were, the deadline for GB holders of existing EU Reach registrations to provide basic information is the 30th of April 2021. Now, whether you are a Northern Ireland person wanting to then sell into GB, I would imagine, yes, it is the requirement to notify the authorities. It's always best to check. Does that answer that one?
Thank you, Cam. Another question, what are the differences between EU Reach and UK Reach as of now?
So EU, you mean in terms of EU Reach? EU Reach is the same as it's, has been. It has been, refreshed and renewed, and it will continue to change and evolve and be refreshed and renewed over the years ahead. So the EU Reach regulation will change. UK Reach starts in the same basic principles, so that all the same principles are as of EU Reach, and the difference is that we will have our own database for UK Reach. So it's that thing about transposing data and information and applying into the UK Reach regime for your products on the UK market. So if you've got the data, then you will submit that into the UK authorities, or should I say GB, must be given GB authorities, to the Health and Safety Executive, but the principles start off being similar. Where the differences will emerge are then on the decisions, on authorizations and restrictions. So you still have the same no data, no market. You still, you still have those principles, but when the authorization and restriction decisions start to work their way through, then it's up to a UK body, the HSE, with other advisors and scientists to then advise on those decisions, submit the recommendations, and the minister will then make their own decision about things, and then you'll start to see differences. But at the beginning, then the process and laws and the guidance start out to be the same, but there may be changes over the months and years as the UK regulator wishes to do so.
Great, thanks, Cam. We've got David, who's asked a question about what action should he be taking. So he's a downstream user of EU manufactured chemicals, but I think this goes for everyone, really. What action should people be taking now ahead of the Brexit deadline?
So, of course, we can't give advice on individual businesses because I think every individual business's circumstances are unique to themselves. So it's looking at the HSE website, look at the government websites to see about what administrative changes need to be in place. So that's the best advice we can give. We can't talk about markets, can't talk about business plans. It's administrative changes.
But basically, we've got the slides which we'll send out, and the slide, you can have a look at the links on the slide that you can see, which will give a lot of useful signposts on what it is that you're going to need to do.
Yeah.
Thank you. A few more. I think this is more for what sort of information will will we be providing as the RSC? Will we be putting some regulatory page on Chemistry World? What sort of resources will be available for people to have a look at?
Do you want to answer that, Tanya?
Yes. So we provide a certain amount of signposting. These webinars are going to be available on our website so that they can act as a resource. And we've got the slides and the links. In the end, it's a fast-moving situation. So keeping an eye on the relevant bits of the gov.uk website is going to be the best thing you can do when it comes to keeping up to date, because that will move a lot faster than, say, some of, say, Voice magazine or other publications, which are great, but are not as frequent as changing government guidance.
Thank you, Tanya. A few more. We've got one of our registrants, Karine, would like to know what will happen when we switch over to UK Reach, because at the moment SDS are compiled following Annex 2 of Reach. So what happens once they switch?
That is a good question I don't know the answer to, so I'll have to say don't know. We'll have to find that out around SDSs.
Okay, thank you. Two more. We've got one from Laura. Will there be input from devolved administrations, so Wales and Scotland, to UK Reach?
I believe so. There's been a lot of work ongoing, I believe, at DEFRA and elsewhere over the last 2 years. And it is, again, my understanding that there will be a GB approach here. Obviously, the decision-making aspects may be devolved to the relevant territories, to Scotland, to Wales, etc., Northern Ireland following EU Reach, as we were saying. But the processes will be largely worked together on, rather than having 3 separate regimes, or the Scottish regime and the Welsh regime, but it will be a GB regime. But of course, decision making may still be devolved on the actual use of chemicals.
Okay, thank you. And one final question from Philip. So he'd like to know about the current trade balance in chemicals between the UK and EU, and what the tariffs are likely to be imposed between the UK to EU or vice versa, if there's any information available for that.
In the event that there is a free trade agreement, then assuming that the relevant chemical products are covered, that would imply tariff-free trade. In the event that there is no agreement, it would be whatever is in the World Trade Organization schedules, which I don't know off the top of my head.
Lovely, thank you so much, Cam and Tanya, for answering the questions. We'll be putting together a Q&A guide afterwards, so we'll send this out via email with the recording and slides for any questions we haven't answered throughout this webinar. Perhaps I'll pass back to Tanya and Cam for any last words.
No, I'll just say things may change as well, mightn't they, Tanya? So we're just keeping a track on that.
And thank you for joining us for this webinar. Thank you for your questions. We will send something out as a follow-up to the webinar and aim to get it on our website. and use your questions and the insights that we've gained from doing this in our input to government. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your Thursday.
Thank you.